It has been some week for Kylian Mbappe and PSG, breaking records and breaking hearts, potentially. Let's head now to Paris and CBS Sports. Jonathan Johnson joins me now. Jonathan, welcome to Room 442. I'm sure a pretty busy week for you. To start with, how much meat's on the bone on this story? How much do you know about, does he actually want out this January, or is it more media speculation at this point?
Hey there, thanks for having me on. Delighted to be able to take up the invitation. Yeah, so the situation is that obviously things took a surprise turn in the build-up to PSG against Benfica, and now there is a situation where it's become very clear that Kylian Mbappé is not, quite happy at PSG despite signing that contract renewal a couple of months ago, and now suddenly PSG have this situation where Mbappe is under contract, but they've got to sort of ride the waves of him obviously being, dissatisfied by, the project that's been put in front of him so far. A lot of that stems from his unhappiness with the position that he's playing on the pitch, the fact that it doesn't mirror the position that he plays for the French national team. But then there's also, other elements to it as well. There were reports that Mbappe felt betrayed by PSG over the promises made that convinced him to extend his contract with the club. And now you've also got these allegations as well, about a potential online smear campaign. It got to the point after PSG Benfica where Luis Campos, the sporting advisor, had to speak publicly, before the game even, where he had to speak publicly and basically deny, that any of this has happened, because he was also involved in some of the rumours. Christophe Galtier, the coach too, and they've played down those rumours since, but very, very clearly, all is not quite right between Mbappe and PSG, and multiple reports are now saying how tense that relationship is.
It seems he made these demands with his most recent contracts. Most people thought he was going to Real Madrid. Didn't happen in the end. Stayed at PSG. It seems he got pretty much what he wanted. Was he betrayed, or is he just being a prima donna here?
I mean, I think you can say, maybe there's a little bit of both. I think betrayed is maybe a strong word to use if we're talking about, PSG's summer transfer dealings, because you think of how much how much of PSG's summer funds they had to put towards keeping Mbappe. So I think for him to sort of hold up the fact that they didn't manage to bring in the striker that they promised him, the focal point of the attack, and another central defender as well. We know that they went very hard for Skriniar of Inter Milan. That didn't come off. So I think, if Mbappe is really sort of taking them to task over that, that's, perhaps a bit rich and maybe not self-aware enough from Mbappe, because obviously PSG had to spend a lot, to manage to keep hold of him. But also at the same time, if certain promises were made regarding sort of, cleaning up the image of the club, and also, potentially making him the absolute focal point of the project, then I think maybe there is more of a case at this moment in time for him to say, this is not exactly what was sold to me. But equally, there was no way PSG were going to be able to move on somebody like Messi, because basically Messi and Neymar are the two guys that Mbappe has to share the limelight with at Parc des Princes. Messi wasn't going to move on after just one season because he's under contract for at least two, and also it was not the best season of his career. And Neymar's value had plummeted such that no clubs were willing to take a risk on him over the summer. So moving him on without an uptick in form, which has now happened since the beginning of the season, was always going to be difficult. So I think, the strongest case, or the strongest argument to be made, is that Mbappe perhaps should have been a little bit more patient and waited to see what PSG can actually do, sort of in the medium to long term within his contract renewal, and not just throw his toys out of the pram, before even the midway point of the first season.
Because the fact is, I mean, the team's playing pretty well this year. He's got 17 goals, I believe. Neymar's back to not his best, perhaps, but very, very good. Messi's turned the clock back a couple of years as well. It looks at right now, and then this happens. Is there friction between Mbappe and Messi, and perhaps more so Neymar?
I wouldn't say that there's friction between Mbappe and Messi. I think Messi is such a well-respected legend of the game that he doesn't really have any issues with anybody. at the club, certainly not that I've heard of. Are relationships between Mbappe and Neymar frosty? Yes, the evidence that we've seen on the pitch so far this season suggests so. That relationship looks like it's being worked on and is still being worked on. But I also think there's perhaps a little bit of bitterness on Mbappe's side as well, at the fact that he's looking at the improved form of Messi and Neymar, just so happens to be a World Cup year as well, of course, and probably feels hard done by, given that he had to put the team on his back, on his own at times last season, and really had to, almost pull them, to within reach of victory. Think about the 2 legs against Real Madrid. I know that PSG ultimately lost that, but Mbappe scored in each leg. What more could he have really done, to put PSG in a position to advance past Real in the Champions League? So I do think that there is perhaps a little bitterness there, that Mbappe maybe feels like Neymar and Messi have just started playing again after a breath of fresh air, which was the replacement of Mauricio Pochettino by Christophe Galtier.
So to put you on the spot here, final question. Moving forward to January, perhaps more so next summer, is Mbappe still playing for PSG?
I mean, it's really difficult to say with regards to next summer. As far as January goes, I cannot see. I mean, to be honest, if you ask me about any player, sort of in the same caliber as Mbappe in terms of a transfer fee, I don't think those transfers happen in January. So I think we can leave that out. And as for next summer, I think it will depend sort of what the reaction is, between PSG and Mbappe in the coming weeks and months. I do think that, there is probably an opportunity to open up some dialogue, despite the fact that it appears to be very cold, very bitter at this moment in time. So, I don't think all is lost for PSG, and we know that the project is likely to change once again next summer. There's no guarantee that PSG will be able to keep Messi beyond the end of this season, and there will be teams that start coming in, knocking on the door, and asking about the possibility of taking Neymar away from Paris as well. So if that was to happen, suddenly Mbappe is undisputedly the top dog in the PSG team, but then it comes down to the relationship between Mbappe and the club, and whether that is in fact broken beyond all repair, or whether those bridges can still be fixed.
Well, it's juicy content, if nothing else. So Jonathan, thank you so much for this. If you haven't followed Jonathan on Twitter, please do. John_Legossip for all things French football, and particularly right now, this soap opera involving Kylian Mbappé. Jonathan, thank you so much.
No, thanks a lot for having me on. Always a pleasure.
All right, when we come back, it's to Major League Soccer. Mikey's in studio looking ahead to this weekend's start of the playoffs. Don't go anywhere.